Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So let us continue our study of Vivekachudamani. So how this the discussion that's going on is how this Atman, which is of the nature of pure effulgence, Sachit Ananda Swarup, how does it get concealed? So again, it was said that it is due to ajnana or ignorance. This ajnana is of two parts or two kinds, namely the avarana, the concealing power, and the vikshepa, the distorting power. So, in various ways, Shankaracharya is again explaining this idea to drive home the point. Now he gives yet another beautiful example. He says, Bhanuprabha Sanjanita Abhram Panktihi Bhanum Tirodaya Yata Vijrumbhate Atmodita Ahankatihi Atmatattvam Tata Tirodaya Vijrumbhate Swayam. Bhanuprabha Sanjanita Abhram Panktihi. The row of clouds which arise from the sun's rays. Bhanum Tirudai Yata Vijrumpade. They conceal the sun and they appear themselves. So when the clouds cover the sun, we don't see the sun, we see only the clouds. But what is the origin of these clouds? Where from they were arisen? Because they were actually created by the sun itself. Without the sun, there cannot be any cloud at all. Because now when the water on the surface gets heated, it goes up into the sky, clouds are formed. This is how clouds are formed. So in a sense, the sun's rays alone create the cloud, but they themselves hide the sun. In the same way, Atma Udita Ahankar Kriti Atma Tattvam Tirodhaya. Tata. See, in the same way, the Ahankriti or the Ahankara, which arises from the Atman as its Upadhi, as its limiting adjunct. Because no, ultimately, if you say that there is only one consciousness or that Sachit Ananda Swarup Brahman, that alone is the only entity or the only truth or the only Satya, which is the only thing which is non-dual, Advaya or Advitiya or Advaita. So whatever appears, it may be appearance, it may be temporary, it may be due to whatever reason. All these are all because of originally if there is only one Brahman and nothing else, all these are actually in somewhere or other owe their origin to that Brahman itself. Because now whatever you see, Natatra Suryo Bhati Nachandatarakam Nema Vidito Bhanti Tameva Bhantam Anubhati Sarvam Tasya Bhasa Sarvamidam Vibhati. Because of that only everything shines. Even the Chandra, Surya, they all owe their shine to that Atman, that Brahman. Because from that only everything comes. So this ahankriti, the idea that ahang also, that is why even one of the sadhanas, the great Ramana Maharshi prescribed always is to trace that aham, because the aham, if you go on tracing it, it would go and end in its origin, namely the Atman. Because everything has come only from that ultimately. So the aham, which is in a sense has come from the Atman itself as its upadhi, it hides the Atman. We are unable to recognize it, unable to feel it, unable to experience it because the ahankriti, the ahankara, comes and it covers that and makes us feel that that is everything. That shines always. The ahankara is that which is always in the forefront. So instead of the Atman, we only always realize that the experience is ahankara or the ego, which always thinks that I am this, I am that. But the same ahankara in its purest form, if you trace it, it will go and merge in the Atman. It's that only. But the ahankara, because of its association with so many other things which are of the nature of an Atman, They bring bondage, they bring suffering, they bring sorrow, they bring everything. If you trace the pure eye, ultimately, if you come on tracing it, that goes and establishes as the ever shining witness or that Chaitanya, the consciousness. So that is the ultimate thing. So, but then because this Atman, because of its close proximity, the Ahankriti, the Buddhi, which is close proximity to the Atman, it conceals the Atman eh, as the, can say, as Vijnanamaya Kosha, because there are Pancha Koshas, the starting from the grossest idea, namely Annamaya, then Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Buddhi, and Anandamaya are the causal. Before that, this Anandamaya level is where from the Buddhi, which takes the reflected Chaitanya consciousness, the Atman, thinks itself to be everything, and then it conceals the original Atman. Then, of course, he gives yet another example to describe the concealing and the distorting power. Here, only in this sloka, only the concealing power is given. The Avarana Shakti, which arises out of Tamoguna, that is shown here. But then the Vikshepa Shakti is more beautifully explained in the next sloka. Kabalita Dinanate Durdine Sandra Megaihi Vyatati Himsa Janjava Janjavayu Rugro Yataitan Avirata Tamasa Atmanyavrite Muda Buddhim Chapayati Bahu Dukkai Stivra Vikshepa Shakti Kabalita Dinanate Durdine Sandra Megehi. So, on a rainy day, which is a Durdina, when the sun is completely hidden behind heavy clouds, and then what happens? Vyateti Himsa Janja. Himsa Janja Vayuhu Ugro Vyatayate. Vyataitan. It becomes, the person, because of the strong winds on a cloudy and rainy day, when a person is out, the wayfarer is subject to blasts of cold wind, which are extremely difficult to bear. So too the person avirata tamasa tamasa atmanyavrate muda buddhim shapayati bahu dukkai stivra vikshepa shaktihi. The same way, the person whose Atman is concealed because he is Muda Buddhi, Muda Buddhim, such a person is concealed, subject to intense hardship. Tibra Bahu Dukkaihi, by his Tibra Vikshepa Shaktihi. And just as in a cold, windy day, a person, when he comes out, there is no sunlight, there are terrible winds. The man is caught up midway in the rains and strong, cold winds blowing. Kabalita dinanate durdine sandra megehi vatayati. Himsa samja, himsa janja vayu rugrau vyatayati. So it is, a person is completely troubled by the strong winds on a cold, windy day, the wayfarer. In the same way, there is no sunlight. In the same way, Atman, which is in the position of sun, does not shine, being concealed by the tamas, which is like dark clouds, the powerful Rajasic Vikshepa Shakti. Tibra Vikshepa Shakti, because the Tibra Vikshepa Shakti, and then in the form of desire, anger, and other qualities comes into play to affect the transformation of the mind. Here also, the there are two things. First of all, on a rainy day when the clouds first really conceal the sun, the Avarana Shakti operates. Then Vikshepa Shakti, in a form of so many other troubles, like strong winds, Vayu Rugro, and then cold, etc. The same way, first the Atman is completely concealed by the Avarana Shakti of the Tamoguna. Then Vikshepa Shakti in the form of great miseries, dukkha, etc. Then they attack and then complete the process. The Atman, the person, does not shine being concealed by the tamas, which is Lord clouds. The powerful Vikshepa Shakti in the form of desire, anger, and other qualities comes into play to affect the transformation of the mind. He also suffers Muda Buddhim Shapayati Bahudukkaihi. He suffers from the terrible dukkha, various types. Person is already Muda Buddhi. He is subject to avarana or tamas, for he has not attained the knowledge which he is supposed to attain. Such a person is subject to many sorrows, which are the stream of many births and deaths, etc. One is drowned in this continuous whirlpool of sorrow. How can the knowledge of Atman, bliss, ever arise? So, he has not realized his Atman, he is completely lost. So, here, a combination of both the operation of both the Avarana and Vikshepa Shakti is also mentioned. So first of all, the person is gets his knowledge concealed, and then through dukkha, etc., which operate because the person, instead of knowing his real nature as of Satchitananda Swarup, thinks that he is attached to this, he is attached to that. He suffers endless miseries because of desire, anger, and so many other things, which are all the result of this powerful Vikshepa Shakti, because this Vikshepa Shakti projects the Satchit Ananda Swarup Atman as so many things. No, I am the owner, I am the enjoyer, I am the husband, I am the wife, I am the Malik, I am the owner, I am a moneyed man, I am educated, I am young, I am bold. This relationship, that relationship, so many kinds of bondages are created. All are because of the Vikshep Shakti or the distorting power of the Agyana or ignorance, because these are the things which completely distort the real nature, apparently, and convey the impression that this wonderful Atman is subject to all that. And then now, the Guru concludes for the clear understanding. एताभ्याम एव शक्तिभ्याम बंधः पुंसः समागतः याभ्याम विमोहितो देहम मत्वात्मानं भ्रमयति अयम् एताभ्याम एव शक्तिभ्याम बंधः पुंसः समागतः. Constrained by these two powers, that is avarana and vikshepa, bandha, pumsaha bandha, subject to bondage, and yabhyam vimohito, deluded by them, deham mat atmanam, a man thinking the body to be his atman, brahmayati ayam, wanders about in such delusion. So ultimately, the whole thing appears to be extremely simple, and to some extent maybe we are able to understand also with intelligence, but the real problem lies in actualizing it and realizing it and putting it into practice and leading a life which is based on such understanding. Because again, these are there are only 3 or 4 concepts that are being discussed again and again. Probably in the we have covered probably 1/4 of the not even that, less than that. So lot more needs to be understood. But again and again, it will revolve around this 3-4 ideas. How in nature, in essence, we are that Chaitanya Swarup, we are that Sachitananda Swarup, we are that Ajirava Chirantan Atma or Brahman. How we have wrongly understood ourselves to be this body, how we have understood body to be the Atman or the Brahman, how we are suffering endlessly. And the cause for this is Ajnana. And this Ajnana has 2 branches, namely Avarana and Vikshepa. And in various ways, how they operate. Constantly, this is what is creating bandhana, this is creating bondage. So the moment through Viveka and Vairagya you give up all that, you really go and get back established in your real nature. It is more easily said done. Of course, he will also give us some suggestions as to how this can be done. But he says, Etabhya, these two, that is Taman Rajas Shakti of the Jnana, which is have the power of concealment and wrong projection. By these is produced the bondage of the man, which is the form of superimposition of a thing on what is not the thing. What exactly is this bondage? What is the bondage? What is the bandhana? If you are that Atman, something else has been superimposed as to completely distort it. First of all, is this concealed, and then this superimposition or the distortion takes place, and the jnana is complete, and by which we are suffering again and again. So, this cannot be got over except by realizing one's nature, by inquiring into Vedanta, by the, as he has already said earlier, the sadhana chatushtaya, the prerequisites for such a Vedanta vichara, the namely nitya, nitya vastu viveka, iha mutra falabhoga, viraga, shamada madesha, sampatti, mumukshutva. These are the qualities. So the the unless we have those qualities, we cannot do Vedanta vichara. So a person who is deluded by these two powers, namely Avarana and Vikshepa, is bereft of enlightenment, considers the gross body as Atman, and he wanders in the Samsara Aranya, in the Samsara, great forest of Samsara, he wanders Brahmayati, he wanders aimlessly and endlessly. So for those who desire liberation, the whole of samsara is described. Again, Shankaracharya describes what is this samsara? What is it that is creating so much problem? What is it that is where we are rooted in it and how we are suffering again and again? He gives a beautiful example. Of course, such examples are also there in Gita, etc., etc. Uddhamola mata shakam. Yeah, um, Ashwattam prahuraviyam chandham se chaparnani yastam veda se vedavit. So then in the same way he gives a little more detail. Bijam samsriti bhumi jasya tu tamo dehatma dhirankuraha ragaha pallavambu karmatu vapuhu skandoha asavaha shakikaha अग्राणि इंद्रिय संहितश्च विषयाः पुष्पाणि दुःखं फलं नाना कर्म समुद्भवं बहुविधं भोक्ता अत्र जीवः खगः. So the what is the bija? Samsriti bhumi jasya. So the samsara, which is bhumi jasya, which is arising out of bhumi, that means tree. Tamaha is the bija. So tamaha bija. So the seed, ajnana, is the tree seed of the samsara. The moment this ajnana is gone, there is no samsara at all. So once you are freed from ajnana, you may live this world, but you will not be touched by the world. So, for example, of course, one cannot even speak of avatars like Thakur, etc. For example, even after the realization, even great personalities like Mother Swamiji Samrit, did they all not live in this world? They did live. But then, the moment the world of the samsara has the power, loses its power of binding you. Once that bondage is gone, the body lives or goes, it does not matter. Because the whole problem is, as long as we live in this samsara, we keep on getting more and more attachments, more and more bondages, more and more difficulties, more and more sukha, dukkha, etc. So when we keep on participating, that is why the bondage gets even stronger. We acquire new samskaras, new karmas. As a result, there will be more karma phala, etc. So once this bondage, the ajnana goes away completely. Once a person realizes his or her nature as the true Atman, then no more there is bondage. You may live in the world, nothing will happen. So in Bengali, there's a beautiful uh, saying which says, so you tie the Brahma Advaita Gyan Anchale Bende Jai Chakra. See, once you tie this Jnana of Advaita in the hem of in your cloth, then do whatever you like. One will not do whatever you like. Do you think such a person will do something which is immoral or unethical, which is of the nature of an Atman? No. Just as they say, an expert dancer does not take a false step. Once a person realizes his true nature, all attractions, the world, the problem is God has given us indriyas, eyes, ears, nose, mouth, then the skin, etc. Every indriya keeps on constantly, gathering more and more, endless experiences, endless participation keeps on occurring again and again. So the moment the true nature of oneself as Atman is obtained, then suddenly, there is a kind of release. All the attachments, all the bondages, all that which we are bound to various senses, etc., they all suddenly become loose, as it were. Then, the participation loses, the individual loses the capacity to participate and get bound. One may take food, this person will not take food, will not sleep, will not take bath, will not do other things. Yes, he will do or she will do. The difference is such a person will no longer be attracted. There won't be any attachment. See, whatever you do, if anything happens immediately, we are attached. We are either we suffer, we are either dukkha or sukha. We feel terribly part of everything. We want to participate. We hold on to it. We have some feelings immediately. But a person of such a realization, anything might happen. But then, after apparently for all external looks, ideas, etc., it look as if they are also participating. They are also part of it. But then very soon they realize their true nature and then they are free from it. So the Guru was telling that Manilal, when I saw Akshay die, everybody was weeping. But Sri Ramakrishna was in ecstasy. He said, as if a sword was received from his cupboard. I saw how the Jivatman is taking its flights to freedom. So everyone might feel, but then it's all, as long as you have the body, there may be some semblance of participation, there will be some semblance of something happening, but in reality they will not last long. For example, mother, how many times mother was seen weeping so profusely when Neda died? Absolutely she was inconsolable, so to say. But then somebody came and told the mother, whole day she was crying, and said, oh ma, it's time for evening Sandhya Kalin. Immediately, in 2 minutes, mother went back, changed her cloth, washed her feet, etc., and then simply gave Sandhya Kalin offering to Thakur and sat for Japam, and everything is over. So that's why apparently there may be like that, but in reality, there is no bondage at all. But normal people, the samsriti bhumi jasetu tamaha, because of some, what happens? What is the shoot? Dehatma dhirankura. The The idea of mistaking the body as the Atman, that is the Ankura or the shoot. Yeah. The Atma Dhira Ankuraha. So that is the shoot. Then Ragaha Phalam. The desire is the tender sprout. Because everything ultimately, desire is that which, because from the sprout only, everything comes ultimately. So once there is bija, then from that ankura, slowly everything, the first difficulty or the first problem is because is the tamoguna. Then the body is thought to be the atman, that is the ankura, and then the raga is the pallava or the sprout, from that everything is coming. Then ambu karma, water is the karma, because without the water the tree can never survive. So the action, the participation is that which really sustains the tree. That is really responsible. Our participation. That is why some of the great traditional schools, etc., they completely negate. They say that all activities should stop. One should completely stay away from karma, because it's karma which leads to bondage, which leads to the idea of I and you, I and me, dvaita. Whenever there is karma, there is duality. So karma should be completely given up. That idea they say, but is it just like that possible? Just by saying that I give up karma? Huh? Karmendriyani samyame yaste manata smaran indriyarthan vimudhatma mityacharasya uchrikita says, you may just externally restrain or kind of hold back your organs of actions. You may close your eyes, you may just keep sitting in a place, but mentally you are extremely active, 100 times more active than you are physically. So such a kind of no refraining or restraining from activity is no use at all. There should be deep inner quietness. The activities should drop off by themselves. That would come through intense participation. Through intense participation, because in all of us there is tremendous amount of rajas, desires, etc., etc. But as Thakur says, can they be given a turn, mode, dena, uske ghumana? Is it possible? Can we give a turn to those desires? This intense desire to do. Instead of doing it for oneself, can you do it for others? What happens when one intensely works for others? The desire for fruits, the desire for participation, the desire for attachment, etc. If one is careful, one can avoid. Because there also, I did this, I did this. If you keep on saying that, the result will be the same. But then it's easier to practice, at least to some extent, when that all that intense desire for activity, intense desire for participation, if it is given a right direction or drift, it's possible to avoid developing more and more attachments or more and more desires, etc. But here it says, Ambu karma. Water is the karma. Vapuhu skandha. What is the trunk? Body is the trunk. Because no, everything rests on this body. Vapuhu skandha. Asavaha shakihaha. Pranas are the winds, because the winds which do from the leaves, the winds, the tree is kind of shaken, and that brings all the other contacts, so to say. Agrani Indriya Samhitascha. The contacts of the senses with the objects are the tender, that inner sprouts, that come, that like munja grass, what is it, the small stem that is coming out. So just like this lata which latches onto other trees and then it grows like that. The Indriya and its contacts, the contacts of the senses with the sense objects is what it leads to. Because no, again, just as it latches onto the tree or any wall or anything, these creepers, the same way, this when the contact produces so much of all these other activities, further desires, samskaras, and so on, and then vishayaha pushpani, the sense objects are the flowers. Sense objects, flowers, the very attractive part of the tree. A tree without flowers, does it look really nice if there are only leaves? But then the flowers, which are the things, the sense objects, which bring so much of joy and delight, but they have so much power of attraction. So the sense objects are like flowers, which keep on producing that kind of attraction, and then that leads the into the jiva to participate. And then dukkam phalam. What is the fruit? Whatever one might do, but is whether you're whether it is joy or a sorrow, whether it is good or a bad, ultimately everything results in dukkha, because most of the time for one small little piece of joy we get 99 pieces of suffering or sorrow. So ultimately that is why in a general way finally it is said that in the samsara vriksha the final is dukkha only. Nana karma samudbhavam bahuvidam bhokta atra divaha kagaha. So the fruits, the eh, nana karma samudbhavam bahuvidam. Nana various kinds of the fruit arising from different kinds of karmas. What is the who is the enjoyer of the experience? Is the jiva or the bird. So this bird eats the fruit of the tree. So here, the samsara itself is described as a tree. Bhuma, bhumi jasya. Samsriti bhumi jasya. The samsara which is come from the bhumi, because that is the from where it arises. Its seed is tamas or ajnana. Then ajnana alone. Here Shankaracharya uses the word tu. Vijasyatu tamaha. Tama is alone is the cause. Ajnana alone is the cause, nothing else. The idea that body is the Atman is the sprout, the ankura, and is caused solely by the ajnana or the tama. Because the whole origin of this misunderstanding, the whole thing which leads ultimately to bondage, everything, etc., etc., is understanding that body is the Atman. So that is considered as the Ankura. Otherwise, the beej is there, the samsara is due to tamo, the seed is sown, that is okay. But if it doesn't sprout, if it dies there itself, if there is no understanding of the idea that body is the Atman, if that sprout doesn't come, then the whole samsara is completely finished. It is exhausted. There is no more samsara. The samsara, the bija will die in the bhumi itself. It will never come out. The sprout, the idea that Atman, a body is the Atman, that is the sprout Ankura. And this is caused solely by the Ajnana. And then the desires, Raga, is the tender shoot which comes after the sprout. From the sprout comes the shoot. So slowly, basically the Ajnana. Ajnana leads to understanding that body is the Atman. And then now slowly desires latch onto it. Once there is body, Ajnana takes further development as a sprout, and then it causes various kinds of, wrong understanding. This takes the form of thinking the desire sense objects they are conducive to the body, they go after the sense objects, and they it thinks that because it is a wrong understanding that it continues. Then ambu is the water which is necessary for the growth of the tree, karma, because without karma nothing else is possible. That's why in various ways that's how they try to stop it. First of all, if the ajnana is cut off the moola itself, then there is no ankur, it doesn't come at all. Then there is no understanding that body is the Atman, then the whole game is over. And subsequently also, yes, the ankur has happened, and then there is this raga, desires, which are like the sprout. Then also, if you completely cut off the water supply, namely the karma, then again the sprout will die, and again there will be mukti. There won't be this uh, wrong understanding of the body as the Atman. That will be stopped if completely the ambu or karma is totally water supply is stopped. So what is the stoppage? That is what I said in the traditional schools. They always say if there's no participation, because ultimately any desire, anything, if it is to be actualized, they all take place only when there is participation by way of karma. So even that's why if there is a great, what is the idea of restraining all that? What is the idea of nice karma? What is the idea of going beyond karma? So slowly, as one understands the nature of all these desires, how they operate, where my actions lead me, and then if the actions are guided such a way, see, the point is a person before knowledge also participates, and the same person participates after knowledge. The difference is in the outward form, there is no change in the karma. Outwardly, he eats, then also you see it, now also you see it. But in one case, there is so much of desire for food, there is so much of desire for so many varieties of food, there is desire for so many types of tastes, etc. But here, it's just like, filling a basket or something like that, just putting it inside, just to put off just to put off the fire of the jataragni, fire in the stomach, just for the deha rakshartam, just for the protection of the body or for the maintenance of the body, the food is thrown there, that much. There is not that kind of a deep desire or participation. This particular food is necessary from this shop, from this place, to be cooked in particular way. No such things. Anything is okay. That's why in greater and greater, that kind of very traditional orthodox sadhus, whatever is given, they mix everything. In the same plate, whether it's dal or sabji or curry or payas or rice, everything is totally mixed, and they take some three pindas like that's all. Then they take water and they go. Those are extremely orthodox, because the tongue should not be given any scope, because the moment you take items separately, then obviously each taste is felt separately, and desire for tasting them again also arises. So what are the ways in which the tree can be really made to die or not sprout, etc. Supposing you take away the water, because the ambu, karma ambu, water is the karma, without which the tree cannot grow, not only that, it cannot survive. So its importance is emphasized with the word tu. And then, so it is said that kurvate karma bhogaya karma kartum cha bhunjate. In the Panchadashi, one works to eat and eats to work. Because to ultimately, in many of most of our lives, we see ultimately the whole thing is the two ahar, nidra. These are the things that constantly engage our attention and take away all our energy and effort, etc. So, this karma, unless it is directed properly, that can lead to this kind of bondage. So, karma, one might say, is punya karma and papa karma. There are two. Anyway, ultimately, most of the karmas end only in dukkha. The trunk of the tree is the body, where from the branches come off. It is middle part of the tree is said to be the skandha, because the body is the real, that way, the trunk of the tree, and which is the real soul support. The whole operation, the whole game of desires, participation, etc. Everything happened because of this trunk, which is called the body. And then winds shaking the tree, which are produced by the agitation of its leaves, are the pranas. Asavaha Shakikaha. These pranas are the winds which shake the tree. And then the agrani, combination of senses such as the Gyanendriya like eyes, etc., and Karmendriya like hands, these depend of course on the prana for their functioning. So this is again, the tendrils are the kind of small, very thin latas like agrani indriya samhitascha. So this the senses and the agranis are the tender latas are the creepers, etc. And then they are agrani indriya samhitascha. The combination or the linking of the indriyas and they are the senses and the sense organs. They are the real cause for this type of actions. And then the Vishayas are sound, touch, etc., etc. So then, what are the flowers? Vishayaha Pushpani. The sense objects are the flowers. They are, as I said, they are the real attraction, making the tree attractive and then conducive to more and more participation in this world. So they are the sense organs. And then finally, the fruit which arises at the tip of the branches after the flowers have come out. The flowers are they are the first source of attraction. And then the fruits come out. The fruit is, why it is dukkam phalam. Fruit is described as dukkha or suffering because although there are sukha, etc., the is only occasionally experienced, and the sense objects, the pleasure produced by them, the wise say that ultimately they only end in pain, because first of all, because to get all the things that we desire, there's a lot of effort that involves dukkha before that. And again, later on, when it is destroyed, when it is lost, when you are not able to get it again there is pain. So in both ways, while obtaining or again when it is destroyed, when it is over, there is pain. Moreover, most of the actions in the world, mostly 99% of it, rajasastu phalam dukkham. So ultimately all the activities come out of rajas, they end in dukkha. That's why it is again it is said like that in the Gita also. Yehi samsashprajat bhoga dukkayonaya evate adyantavanda kaunteya nateshu ramati buddha, which are born out of contacts, sangsparshaja, which are born out of contact. These bhogas, they are of the nature of pain. They are generators of pain only. You see here the phalam dukkham it is said because they have contact of their senses with the sense objects. They ultimately they only in then according to the Buddha or the wise man. That is why they do not delight. So a wise man does not rejoice in them. So Kaunteya, son of Kunti Arjuna, a wise man does not rejoice in them because they produce only dukkha. So the karmas are of various kinds. So the fruits are also various kinds. So in this tree, the bird, the jiva, is that which experiences the fruit of suffering and sorrow. So ultimately, in this, the jiva is considered a bird who is in this, who flies and moves about in this samsara, the tree of samsara, and then constantly experiences the fruits. So the tree of samsara has roots in ajnana. Its only fruits are the suffering. So it is to be shunned like a poisonous tree or a tree which is capable of giving us only dukkha. The answer, so because previously the 5 questions that were asked, katham pratishtasya, how is this established? So the bandha, the form of mistaking the body for the Atman, arises from desire and hatred caused by karmas, etc., which are dharmic and adharmic, again, which are produced by those karmas, and firm attachment to these bodies and gets confirmed by their cumulative effect. So it's a kind of cycle. That's why it is said anadhi, because no one knows how it has happened. But desires produce various kinds of karma. Karma produces various karma phala. Karma phala gives rise to various kinds of body. Again, the body gives rise to various kinds of desires. Again, there is sukha and dukkha. Again, there is bhoga. Again, there are karma. So it seems to be a unending circle. There is no, it's anadhi. It can be samsara sagara. It is ananta. Till this, there is jnana, and jnana till it destroys it completely. It is of the nature of not only anadi, it is ananta, because again there will be next birth, because whatever you did in this birth, that will lead to the next birth. Again, you have to enjoy all those fruits, sukha and dukkha. Again, that leads to further such experiences. So it goes on and on endlessly. So before answering the question, katam vimokshaha, how one can obtain release, then again the nature of bondage is explained by Shankaracharya, which is cause and effect, in the next loka, which we will take up next week. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.